Hey folks, Steve here with another Axis Empires Ultimate Edition video. This is going to be part one of the Great Crusade, the scenario that covers the Western Allies getting back into Europe. Uh, well, I guess sort of, right? We're getting into Sicily, and I mean, technically, we're already on the Europe map that includes North Africa. And the Allies have already done their torch landings, and all that is well and good. I've made a number of adjustments to the setup based on feedback from the comment section. Couple of things. One, I'm leaving out Narvik. I at least I think I am. I'm gonna go double check the count. Maybe I can do that. I mean, even right now. So, um, the concern is like, oh, if you don't include Narvik, because it's on the east map now, and it used to not be in previous versions of the game. You could it changes the scenario, right? Well, I opted to include Narvik before. I think there's enough going on that I don't need it, but there is a question of like, hey, does that affect the victory points? Um, but given it's a gray victory hex, and if I just look, um, I want to say, let's see, one, two, three. I don't know. I don't know, guys. I'm not going to worry about it right now. But if it gets down to the wire at the end of the scenario, and we were, I don't know, one victory point hex away, then we'll talk about the situation. I am less concerned with who wins the scenario here than to just play it and learn and continue to absorb the game's mechanics. Then if I'm one strategic hex away from somebody getting victory or not, I think that'll be a well fought campaign, I guess, or something along those lines. We'll figure it out along the way. Of course, if it's errata and it turns out that Narvik should be included, well then you've got some challenge because it's supposed to be a one map scenario. I don't know. I'm just working it as I can. Um, Want to talk about Sicily for a second before we get too far in. There's a question around like for all the units on the map, you basically have a very narrow amount of units as the axis to cover. You basically have enough units to cover like I'd say all the major sites that you're really concerned about. Um, and there was a question on the Sicily setup that Max had brought up that I want to talk through because to me it's kind of this interesting thing. Like once you abstract enough of a game or you zoom out, you start to lose some fidelity and you wonder, well, is there anything to it or not? The question is for Sicily, while the Axis is going to get to go first and we'll assume some minor moving stuff around, maybe some replacements that get put on the board to do something, this, that, or the other. Um, there's a question of uh, what uh, what about Sicily? How do you defend Sicily? Well, I had initially had something like this set up, and there was a question like, well, why? Why defend there? Or maybe I had it in Syracuse actually, and that's worse than putting something in Gala, I think. Um, but I don't know. So we look at it and say, well, what if maybe instead of Gala we put it in, or in Syracuse you put it in Gala. I don't know. Historically, the Allies landed here essentially, right, or close enough. Kind of, you're working the edges of the hexes here, but they invaded down here. They expanded into Palermo and eventually started to work their way up into Italy. And the Axis kind of they wanted to retreat, they wanted to stay in supply, they wanted to kind of hold defenses. So the question is, what is the best defense of Sicily and what's the best angle of attack? Well, it was rightly pointed out that with the now I've got to find the dang thing. The beachhead marker that let's just say we were doing it with a ship because I think that's probably a better way to do this, but maybe it'll have to be with air. So well, you could You could stick this guy right there, like that, right? And then these guys can, in the movement phase, use all their movement, move to here. We'd be in the blitz combat segment. We could, let's go with this idea, right? We attack, we're attacking, what is essentially 11 to 3. And just to be complete, right, we'll put a blitz marker here. So, yeah, 11 to 3. And let's see, we'd get a shift to the left that would be covered by the armor unit, the mechanized unit here. And then you'd have an HQ support shift, because there is an HQ here. So, 11 to 3 ends up only being 3 to 1, but they get a shift. You get on the 4 and 5 to 1. So what kind of results do you get? Well, you might be able to, if you roll well, maybe you attrit one step out, and then this guy retreats a couple hexes, and the allies can, get on fantastic, and maybe they get out to here. Then another combat. This one, well, they got a mountain hex side, so that's kind of tricky. Have to figure something out there, right? That's one way that this could go. We'd get that second attack, and again, it'd be 3 to 1, but with the mountain, go to 1 to 1. Actually, no, you'd get the HQ bonus. So 6 to 1, shift 1, 2 to 3 to 1, and then shift back again. You might be able to finish attriting him away, or he possibly retreats again. I think you can retreat over straights. And while this gets the allies the territory of Sicily, which is okay, that's fine. What I fear it's doing is that it is allowing some of these units to get pushed back into Italy proper a little too easily. And I'm not sure I want to do that. That to me is a bit of a concern. So what's the alternative? Because I think this is the expectation. I don't know, Max, if you're watching this, like, are you thinking I hit Palermo directly? It seems like an obvious thing to go do, right? Easy peasy, right? You just go and bing bang boom. But I'm not so sure I want to do that. I think I suspect there may be a better way. I don't know if it's better so much as like an alternative way to do this. Now, granted, this gets even more difficult if, let's say, we can only get the landing marker off with, let's say an air beachhead for some reason. But I think I would think I would think the I would think the Allies could win that to get in there with a ship beachhead. But if you do it with an air beachhead, it's kind of it's even worse essentially, right? Um, Depending on how you want to do this. I mean, I guess here's the other alternative. We set this back for a second. We could, if I look at my, one, two, that's well in range. We could stick the Air Force here. Of course, they could retreat to, Gala, Syracuse, and then, do it this way. They could retreat. So you do Air Force here. You could do a carrier strike there, but that still feels like I'm spending a lot of markers to do this, right? If I want to do it that way, I feel like I'm spending a lot of markers. I'm not sure I want to do that necessarily. Of course, the Germans have their own allotment of support markers they could be using, as do, well, the Italians maybe not so much. But certainly the Germans could try to stop something here. Uh, though I'm looking and I'm actually wondering, I don't think there's very many German bases in the area. So that's a problem for them. So what's the alternative then? What can we do instead? Um, well, let's kind of reverse it for a hot second and say, let's say we over let's say we over defend in Palermo. Well, by golly, we can do this and land in Gala, right? So for a second, we move here, right? Then in the operational uh, combat, right? Or not operational combat, gosh, blitz combat. In blitz combat, there's no enemy here. We can do the landing, right? So let's say we're landed here. We're putting a Zoc into the rough terrain there, and now we would do in the regular attack phase, 11 to 3. Um, let's say we didn't even have any air. What would that be? Well, it's a bit different. We don't get the shift for mechanized, but we get the shift for the HQ, and we don't have to worry about the shifts for the beachhead because we've already gotten through, and now we're attacking it. The 4 to 5 to 1. But here's the thing: pretty much every result but a 6 will destroy both of those units. They'll need to retreat either 2 hexes or a combination of a retreat and a step loss, and that will eliminate these guys. So now they're gone. Instead of retreating into Italy and then having more defenders that we're going to have to deal with, we just straight up eliminated those guys and can now, let's say, we defeat them, advance after combat. Hey, great. And then, we start to make our advance in the reserve movement phase. So, you can see it's just like, okay, well, how do I want to dissect this situation? If I want to, ideally, we eliminate these units because the fewer units we have on the board, period, in Italy, the easier it should be to take. Avalanche is kind of our key here, which is if a supplied U.S. ground unit occupies a city or a hex in an Axis or Soviet minor country, you may select that country and apply Operation Avalanche. And keeping in mind, we don't get to Italian cities until we get to either Naples, Rome, or one of the northern Italian cities. And Naples really feels like that's going to be the one that we need to get into. And say, well, there's fewer units to try to defend. And I guess knowing that, I might even want to shift one of these guys up here. Or never mind, I took this one off because the Italians will get some step replacements in the Axis turns. Never mind. So those are the different ways that I think this can go. They're varied here, right? And I guess this is just, if you're the Allies, depending on how your opponent sets up, that's going to govern what you do. Are you going to be hitting them in Gala? Because there's a reason to do it. If they're not defending that, I think there's a very good reason to try to uh, to go for Gala. You can cut off the units and take them that way. That might be better. Now, here's the thing. This is all based on what the Axis actually decides to do. So let's say I do set up the way that I said. Okay, well, if I do this, now the Allies would have to still attack here, right? They could attack here. This would be, you know, what, 11 to 1. So it'd be on the 9 to 1, and then they get a shift, one or two shifts to the left, and then one or two shifts to the right. So this would be very, either destroy or this guy retreats. If he does retreat, he's probably retreating like that. These guys would get to advance, and then, again, there would be a regular combat. They would probably finish these guys up, no problem. But this guy probably gets away, and that's better for the Italians, I think, ultimately. I mean, if you just look at it, um, what would you rather be doing? Is saving a unit or not? Now, this is an elite unit. I don't think the Germans would want to lose that, but this unit has to go into Palermo. So, um, this also depends on whether or not you think that the Axis has some ability to do a different type of action on its turn to vacate Sicily, and that might be a thing to do too. Um, just because we set up in Palermo doesn't mean this unit has to stay there on the German turn before all this happens. We could set this guy up here, and he could go, one, two, or however many it would be, and just try to save that unit if we don't, if we want to use it later to try to surprise the Allies with a sneaky move or some tangible benefit. That's feasible too. So I guess what's the point of me talking about this for like 20 minutes? Oh my gosh, I've been talking too long. I I'm bringing this up because I don't know that there's a perfect answer here. I think it's very obvious to say, well, defend Palermo. Um, Maybe save the paratrooper unit as the Germans, because you could use that unit a number of ways later, or you could just rebuild it later too, I guess. Well, it has a delay stripe, so that could be a problem. So do you save? Do you save it? You start to pull the Germans back. I think that's probably worthwhile to do. Alternatively, you defend, and you defend either all up here and risk these guys all getting eliminated, or you defend like this and you hope to save an Italian unit. And is it worth losing the paratroopers to save an Italian unit? Probably not. So, anyway, this is all hypotheticals, guys. I'm going to have to commit each side to picking something. I'm just trying to, I'm wargaming the wargame. I'm checking out what are the different ways that this is probably going to go, because the Allied strength is so good here, right? They're going to land in Sicily. It's a question of how. How do they do it? How do they choose to do it? They're really going to go to one of these two hexes. Historically, they landed, more over here, and wanted to cut off the Axis in Sicily there. That's still probably a great idea. I don't know that, like, I don't know if we, again, if we said, oh, we're just going to pile all our strength in Palermo, well, yeah, then land in Gala and finish them off quick with one combat, and we probably don't have to spend as many support markers to do it. That feels more efficient than to try to just pile everything into Palermo and achieve the same result of cutting those units off and destroying them. We have less chance of doing that effectively. So anyway, I'm going to have to think on this and commit. So I'm going to go commit. If I pick something you feel is not optimal, try to explain why. Because I've been thinking it through. I've been trying to figure this out. I said, well, I just, you got to pick something. And what would I rather have later? And I probably do need to reread Operation Avalanche, but my thinking is we're going to end up wanting to put more units in and around Naples, probably in Rome, and I need to. I, I don't know. Then it's like, why'd you even put any units down here? Period. Just put them all here. Let them have Sicily. Um, I don't know. It's costing them actions though, so um, I don't know. This is tricky stuff. Anyway, guys, I'm gonna go figure it out and I'm gonna play it. You'll see you'll see the start of things here, or my new setup for the playthrough in just a second. Okay, here we are with the setup, and there we be. That's what we're gonna go with. We're gonna see what happens. I don't know how I feel about it. All right. First things first. Um, we're going to get started here. Axis faction turn. Yes, the Axis will get to go first in the turn. I didn't see anything about starting with the Allied turn, so the Germans are going to have to play a card and then have a pending card. They're going to do Operation Citadel, and then as their phasing card, and I don't know if, well, I just don't know. We only have so many cards to pick from. Um, I'm just going to do the historical option and do total war production. That's going to give them a couple of steps. So we'll put this face down, noting that that's our, pending card after this next one, and we play Operation Citadel. Now, I had a look. This is kind of hidden in the rules a little bit. You got to read them in the one map scenario, the section of the Totaler-Krieg rules right before they actually list the one map scenarios. There's a little column of rules that stipulates you roll a die for this, and um, for this it is if you roll a 1 to 3, you can't place that blitz marker. If you roll 4 to 6, you can. Now, granted, I guess you do that every turn. Yeah, you would do. I'm just going to do that now, I guess. Well, I guess I wouldn't know. I guess I wouldn't know yet, so I need to hold on this. But there's a chance that we don't get the blitz marker for it because it's assumed maybe it's being used on the east front. But we are going to get some units. We're going to get an HQ, the CHQ, a 114 SS unit, um, and we get fewer units than the regular game version of the card, it tells us. And then we're going to get some additional replacements. We're going to get some armor. We're going to get some infantry. I feel the need to garrison northern Italy, a strong need to do that because I don't think things are going to hold well in this scenario. So let me take care of that, and just because I want to do this with some level of speed after yakking about Sicily for 20 minutes, um, I'm going to play through really a big chunk of the Axis faction turn because I don't see where the Axis can attack. So this is more about placing our markers, doing what we can there, and pulling back uh, units, with operational movement and all that kind of stuff, and trying to get into northern Italy, um, all that kind of good stuff. So yeah, we're going to take care of this, and I'll play through a lot of the Axis turn, and then we'll kind of show the aftermath as the Allies prepare for Operation Husky. Okay, here showing the aftermath of the German turn. Mostly sent our replacements into northern Italy, as well as a newly built HQ to just expecting that we're going to have to fight there, and it's going to be a tough slog. So starting to get guys situated there. We'll probably head a little further south when we can. But here's the net effect. So I did pull back the paratrooper. What that does is it makes Palermo no longer a German, air base or naval base or anything like that, which affects how we can execute support. Now, here's the thing. I tried to calculate it out. Let's say we did everything in our power to block the beachhead of the Allies with German air power and this, that, and the other. As it would work out, I do not believe the Allies have, or I'm sorry, not the Allies, the Axis has enough uh, markers to outdo the uh, the Allies. I don't see how they can do it. It did not seem like, I don't know, if we did the fight now, right? We sent in all our German air, the Allied air contested it. We're talking both Americans potentially and uh, British, and there are American and British air bases nearby. Um, you throw it all in, keeping in mind the British also have a carrier fleet, can basically match uh, can basically match all of the Axis support markers and still get the beachhead. The difference being that now all the German stuff is on the in the delay box, hard to and off for a long time basically, or what could be a long time. So it's kind of like, well, why give up all this German air if we know that Italy's probably going to fall? So we're going to save our paratroopers. We're going to give up our ability to really stop the invasion because we couldn't stop it anyway. If I'm counting up my markers correctly, because the Allies have three surface fleets, one carrier fleet, two American planes, a British plane, interceptors as well. They also have bombers. Um, so three fleets defeats one Italian fleet, and four air placement, an air force, a carrier, three air forces and a carrier will defeat um, uh, the three German air and their interceptor, basically, or at least like they'll all go off the board. Okay, fair enough. I don't know that that does us any good, does it? Does it? I don't know. The Allies are going to get theirs back sooner, I think. If I try to look at the delay DRMs, the Allies will get a -2, yeah, -2 basically. We could put some stuff in the strategic warfare box, I guess, as the Axis. But even then, it's not so good. So that's kind of a problem. We've got all kinds of problems. Ultimately, that's kind of where we're at. So, um, meanwhile, the Germans would have a +2. Let's see, at least a +2. I mean, you work it out. The Allies can also put in bombers in the strategic warfare box. I mean, you put all those things together, right? And what basically is going to happen is, if we try to stop the Italian or the Allied invasion now, we're going to have our stuff all over the place, and miss potentially miss D-Day. I'm trying to think. One, two, three, four, five, six, seven. Now the Germans would maybe get their stuff back in time if we decided to stop them. I'm flummoxed here a little bit, guys. I'm just trying to trying to figure out, like, how do we make this work? What's the right thing to do? Do we just count off all these support markers and then try to delay the Allies? And if we were going to do that, here's what I would change. I would leave this guy down here. I'd put this guy in Gala. Um, this setup would be slightly different. I'd probably do something like that. And then we would try to contest as best we could. And there's different things we could do with that. We could send our boats out. Um, I'd have to go look at whether or not we could send German submarines into the Western Med. That might not be feasible. Um, yeah, we'd have very limited ability to maybe stop the Allies, but we would be having to use all of our air power to do it. And it's not a terrible thought. So I don't know. I mean, I feel like this is tough. The worst case scenario is the Germans roll a bunch of sixes on the delay box, then plus, I think it's going to be +2, could be +3 or more. Uh, the Allies do have bombers that they could put in. So could be +3 to their delay and be 9 turns. So one, two, three, four, five, 9. Well, I guess they'd get them back in time. I guess that's the calculus. Like, what's the worst case delay marker count? If we rolled sixes for every single one of the German support markers, we'd still get them back in time. It looks like for a potential D-Day landing in 44. So maybe I do this. I guess that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna adjust it. Now that I'm talking myself into it. We're gonna do it. We're gonna have ourselves a support marker off, support marker placement competition, and try maybe to get do a better job of the allies in the delay box, and that's just the best that we can hope for. Now, if this were Schiffskrieg, I guess it'd be a little more interesting because then we could actually see like, hey, can we? How much can we actually contest the allied uh, forces here? That might be the interesting thing. So, what are the types of things we can do? Well, we can try to put our own air power over here, and then make it hard for the allies to move in there. We can also then be contesting the allied placement of markers. That's certainly something worth trying. And whatever we do on our turn, we kind of force the allies to make a decision themselves. Um, so that's kind of tricky to think about, right? Like, what can we hope to achieve? I do want a unit here because I want to make use of the mountain hex sides to do something. He can't be overrun because of the terrain, so um, there's a little bit of an incentive to try to defend up a little bit, but I don't know. So if I decide to go forward with this, I feel like this is a bad video, guys. I'm so sorry. All this indecision. This is really hard to play solitaire. I think if I were just playing, I would just make a decision and go, but like I have to think about both sides and what each side's capable of doing, and that's kind of hard to do with these markers. It's really just saying like, am I going to contest or not? And that's a really when you see both sides of the equation, it's hard to really say one way or the other. So yeah, yeah, this is going to be tricky. Yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to I guess not play any markers on the German turn. Except maybe some subs. All right, I jumped ahead a little bit, guys. I decided to just, as we were, this is an odd game for solitaire because I really just, no matter when or how the markers get placed, they're going to get contested. So I sort of played through the German turn, morphing into the Allied turn, and we had ourselves a support marker placement competition. The Germans had tried to put their subs out. That got blocked by interceptors. The Allies put their bombers out. That's in the strategic warfare box. We had airplanes flying all over the place, all kinds of stuff going into the delay box, including the naval warfare delay box, which the Allies are kind of winning the bid there. And we're just getting to the point where we're going to be placing the Allied beachhead marker and blitz marker. Um, I think we're going to end up going here. Um, and we put our carrier unit here to block retreats for this guy. We're actually, no, wait. How do I want to do this? He's going to provide um, column shifts, is what he's going to do. So I think we're going to do an attack and then a follow-up attack there, and then be able to operate in Western Sicily and be able to start working up the boot. I'm placing, so just catch things up. So all that's playing out, right? We have to kind of do that. And again, I want to make sure that I can take care of both of these guys. However, which way we would have done it, right? If they had defended here, we would just land and then attack and then potentially push them out as well, with a Zoc being projected here. So just in general, this is just one of those things. Like, I don't know how much of a difference it makes. Trying to determine what's optimal, it's kind of further ahead than I can guess. The thing with Operation Husky is we also get some replacements, so we're able to put just a couple steps on the logistics marker that's here. There's already a French unit there, so we have to watch stacking. But I put some American units in here. We've also got some American units going in Eastern Canada box, and then some British units that are going in Britain proper. And so that's taking care of this. And we're going to do the recombination segment, the organization segment here in a minute. I just want to show there are some troop convoys that we're going to try to open up, to get guys out to here. We didn't quite have enough markers to do a full troop, like, what do you call it, troop escort, so that they could ship all the way into here, into the Western Med. So we're having to ship them into Casablanca, I think, unless I've got another marker somewhere that I'm not seeing. But we need an escort troop convoy, I think, to ship into the Western Med, because it's not a home port. Oh, actually, no, never mind. Gibraltar is a British dependent, which means we can. Gosh, guys, this is the funky stuff that gets you. I'm telling you, this is the funky stuff that gets you. A port, okay. You can place convoy marker in naval zone that contains a port and a dependent belonging to the convoy marker's home country. Well, then, by golly, here we go. So what that'll mean is we will be able to ship a core all the way down here. So the Americans are going to ship into Casablanca. The British will ship into Oran. I guess we could have them ship directly into. Yeah, that stacking is going to be an issue. So we're going to be able to start shipping units in here in the operational movement phase of the Allied turn. We're already kind of playing the Allied turn at this point. Like I said, I'm skipping ahead a little bit. But we're going to do some reorging. Probably see these Americans become a mechanized army. I was trying to think, do I leave them in core form? But if we're going to do a landing later, and truly invade with just a core somewhere on the Italian coast, we'll be able to do that. We'll be able to do that a couple different ways with the Americans, I guess, if we can get our support workers back. So I think it's fine that we're going to reorg this guy. We're going to get these guys moving east. We're going to start shipping more units into North Africa, probably. We'll have to watch, because I do need to start building up in Britain for next year. But I guess I'll wait. We'll have a couple of cards of replacements, I think, before we need to worry about doing that. So I'm not going to sweat it too much, but I don't want to overcommit to Italy and then not have enough committed in Britain, I guess. That's just something. Having played other games like this, I think about Ted Racer's Fall of the Third Reich. It's like you gotta know when to stop feeding the Med front and start feeding the prep for D-Day. So I'm going to get through the rest of the Allied turn of making movements and doing our attacks over here, which should lead ultimately to the capture of much of Sicily, and then the protracted offensives, across the gap here into the boot of Italy at some point. Maybe not this turn, but we'll be off to a good start. So let me go take care of that. I know this is kind of erratic, guys. I can't walk through and just show, like, okay, I'm going to place this marker. Oh, no, you're not. And then these things go to the delay box. That was going to take too much time. So I decided just to work it all out here and put the markers in as appropriate. It's entirely possible I could have missed something. But I think we're all caught up. But it does mean that the Germans are missing a very large number uh, a very large number um, of markers now. They've used up all they could to try to slow down the Allies. But the Allies could still get their beachhead marker off with a fleet, which is the better beachhead marker. The Germans are just praying that they get really good die rolls, I guess. Had they not, just to mention, if they had not contested any of this, um, the Allies could have spent a little bit, made the gains that they needed to make, and probably would get their support markers back before it would matter for the Germans. So it's like you either use your support markers now and hope you get them back before D-Day, um, or who knows what. I mean, that's really the thing I'm stuck on with this, and the abstractions kind of getting me hung up, but I'll get through it. So let me play through some more of the Allied of this part of this first turn, and we'll see where we end up. All right, here I just want to show the aftermath of the turn, and yeah, I mean, unsurprisingly, the Allies have kind of swept in, capturing. I haven't done all the marker cleanup yet, so bear with me. Um, uh, they're definitely in Sicily. We even got the conditional event because this has a ground unit as a U.S. ground unit as a part of it. We are getting some extra conditional event steps, which I left our logistics marker empty enough to actually get the benefit of that. And you can see we've got a trickle of units that are being um, shipped in and moved via the troop convoys. Now, I was able to place a normal troop convoy here because of Gibraltar, so we're like one corps in the operational movement phase, which is over here now, and then one in the reserve movement, which is here. And the same thing with Americans who are um, starting to make their way from Casablanca over. And I'm looking at it, and I'm going, well, I may not need to invest much more in the med, depending on how the die rolls go, and we may be able to start shifting to keeping units in Britain and start building up there. But I'm not sure yet, so we'll have to play that by ear. But it feels like the Allies have a lot of steps. I'll also show the aftermath of all our delay box rolls. So no one got a six, but what we did end up with is kind of a this. So the whole gamble, I guess, of the Germans was, hey, let's try to just throw our support in and hope we get better support die rolls than the Allies. Well, that was the gamble. They sucked it real bad. They ate crap on it because the Germans, when you work out all the modifiers, there's a -2 for the Axis tide stuff. And technically this is not the right VP track. I should be using the regular one. This is some errata, but I just have it here to help me for the moment. -2 for that, but a +2 for the U.S. commitment level, right? And then they get another, so it would be flat, but a +1 because of the British Bomber Command giving them a +1. And they rolled a spread here, so they have some stuff coming in a couple turns. Actually, a number of units are coming in 2 turns from now, which was the earliest that they could get. But then we have a number of units that got strewn about the next turns, like the 4th turn, 5th turn, 6th turn, 8th turn. So we did get one air unit that got a 6 and got pushed out quite a bit. Meanwhile, the Allies, you can see a big fat stack right there, all rolled ones and twos basically, for the most part. I think there was like one. No, they all did. Maybe there was like one unit that wound up on turn 3, but on the die rolls, I kept rolling ones and twos. -2, earliest it can be, is the next turn. So the Allies made a big gamble on, or not maybe even a gamble, but they surged their support in, and they're coming out the winner, and they're going to get a lot of their stuff back next turn, um, which will enable them to keep things moving. Meanwhile, the Axis are going to have a turn where they don't really get any support markers back, and they don't really have much in reserve. So that was that big gamble, I guess. But on turn 3, they'll get some stuff back, but by then, I mean, who knows what will be happening. So I guess that's the thing, I guess, to ask the commentary group here, like, is it worthwhile to throw all your support out and just try to make a a hope for the best situation, or do you try to meter it out? I feel like you can't meter it out because if you do one support marker versus one support marker, well, the allies are still probably going to get that one back before you. You're kind of hoping for some kind of shakeout across multiple die rolls that you'll get something out of it, and we just didn't get that. So I don't know how to look at that. Um, I don't know how to look at that. So the Germans did lose their paratroopers. That hurts, and well, there's going to be more to unleash here. I think this is a really good stopping point though for this first or for part one, because we talked about the Sicily thing so much, and we played through this first turn. I mean, the Allies are kind of on a roll. They're surging a lot of strength in, and basically, if I look at this, if a supplied U.S. ground unit occupies a city or port hex in Germany, Belgium, Holland, or any minor country listed on the Balkan Central or Western Area table, they receive reinforcements. Well, guess what? They do, right? We have the port of Palermo with a unit that comprises a U.S. ground unit, and this appears to be able to be done every turn. So we're going to continue to get some freebie U.S. replacements in the North Africa, which is going to sustain this drive. And I think I am going to start to ship some more U.S. units into Britain instead at this point, just because I feel like we're going to be in reasonably good shape to make some ground here. We just need to get, basically, we're on a timer now. We've got one, two, I guess 2 turns to try to get into Naples. That's kind of the big grab here. We need to try to make something happen to grab a city. Or I guess no, we're not on a timer. We have several turns to get into an Italian city to play Avalanche. So, but that is kind of the next objective we need to be playing to, is the next card, which when we play Avalanche, we'll have until the end of autumn to have gained an Italian city to cause them to kind of fall apart. And then the Germans are going to keep them alive in the north, is kind of how that'll all work out. So that's the goal. Not sure what we're going to do about Sardinia and Corsica yet. At some point, we'll want to get in there and take that and disrupt that. But we'll have to. I don't know. It's not a main priority. Like, it doesn't help us that much, I guess. If we don't have it, it might be more inconvenient than anything. But these guys will have supply issues because they don't have a. They're not. The Germans don't have a supply convoy here, so the fact that they're here is just to help, uh, ensure that we don't give up easy air basing of the Allies. But eventually it's not going to matter, because once the Allies are on the continent in Italy proper, they'll be able to project force, and then eventually we'll do D-Day in 44. So anyway, lots to consider here, guys. Let me know what y'all think. It's kind of too late to reverse time now. I think I've got things moving. But let me know what you think about that initial Sicily conversation, and on the ins and outs of that. Let me know what you think about the support marker roll off, which again the Axis have lost pretty badly, I'd say, or reasonably badly. And what else we could be doing here that I'm not seeing yet because of my inexperience. Let me know, and we'll see you in the next video. I'll try to hopefully take into account your feedback over tonight when this video gets up, and you guys can commentate on it over the late hours or early hours, and tomorrow or whenever I get a chance to do it, because life is busy, I'll do the next video and incorporate those thoughts if there's any good guidance there for me to follow. So, all right, we'll see you in the next one, guys. Take care. Keep gaming.